Hello everyone, I am Saurabh and I welcome you back to the Digital Board series by Orchids Biosciences. This is the fourth video for How Do Organisms Reproduce? If you haven't watched the previous videos yet, I have provided its link in the description below, so please do look for it. In this video, we will discuss the sexual reproduction in human beings, in which we will discuss the following topics. We will discuss what is puberty, the various secondary sexual characters that occur or appear during puberty. Then we will discuss the primary and secondary sex organs. After that, we will discuss the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system, both in detail. So let's start with sexual reproduction in human beings. We have already discussed in the previous video about the sexual reproduction, which involves the fusion of sex cells called gametes from two different parents. Even in human beings, the male parent produces the male sex cells called sperm, and the female produces the female gametes called ovum. It is also called as egg. So sperm is produced by the male and ovum is produced by the female. These gametes, that is sperm and ovum, will then fuse to form the zygote. The zygote, which is a result of fusion of the sperm and the ovum, will have the genetic characters from both the parents, that is from male and female. So both the genetic character, that is of the male and the female, will go to the zygote. The sex cells or gametes in human beings, which are sperm and ovum, are produced in certain reproductive structures which are called as gonads. Gonads are different in case of males and females. We will discuss about the gonads when we discuss about the reproductive system in male and female in detail. Similarly, there are various other reproductive structures as well. These reproductive structures start functioning in our body at a specific age or period. This age or period when these reproductive structures become active as well as become sexually mature. So this age of sexual maturity, or the period of this sexual maturity when these reproductive structures become active or matured, is called as puberty. So puberty is the age, or puberty can be defined as the age or period when the reproductive organs of a child start functioning or become active and the child becomes sexually mature. So this is called as puberty. We know that we grow from a child to an adult, and when this happens, whatever resources are available in our body will be used for the general growth and development of our body. So the growth of the reproductive tissues when we are growing from a child to an adult is not likely to be a major priority, because all the resources in our body will go for the general growth and development of our body. But during puberty, the body growth rate, the general body growth will slow down, whereas the reproductive tissues growth will increase. Or we can say the reproductive tissues begin to mature and the body growth, the general body growth, begins to slow down. So this happens during the puberty. So puberty is the age or period where the child becomes sexually mature and the reproductive structures become functioning or active, and at this age or at this period the reproductive tissues begin to mature and the general body growth slows down. So this is about puberty. During puberty, there are various characters or features which can be seen in an individual. The various characters or features that appear during the puberty are called as secondary sexual characters. The secondary sexual characters can be same or similar for both boys and girls, and some secondary sexual characters are even dissimilar or different in case of boys and girls. So let us look at some of the secondary sexual characters which are similar for both boys and girls and which are different as well. Some similar secondary sexual characters seen in both boys and girls are thick hair growth in armpits and thinner hair growth in our legs, arms and face. So we can see some thinner facial hairs and hair on legs and some thick hair growth in our armpits, and this can be seen in case of both boys and girls. One another similar character which can be seen in both boys and girls is the skin becomes oily as well as it develops pimples. So these are few characters which can be seen generally in both boys and girls. But there are certain characters which are different in boys and girls. For example, in boys, there is growth of beard and mustaches, broadening of shoulders, the voices begin to crack, and so on. So these are few of the secondary sexual characters which are seen only in case of boys, that is growth of beard, broadening of shoulders, their voices begin to crack. These characters are not seen in girls. The girls show different secondary sexual characters, like there is an increase in the breast size, there is broadening of hips and thighs, and the girls also begin to menstruate. What is menstruation also we will discuss in detail. So these are the changes in girls. Their breast size increases, the hips start to broaden, and even the thighs broaden. They start to menstruate at this period. So the secondary sexual characters we see can be different in case of boys and girls, and some are even similar in case of boys and girls. So these are few of the secondary sexual characters which appear or occur during our puberty. Now let's discuss about the sex organs in human beings. There are primary sex organs as well as secondary sex organs in human beings. So these are the two major types of sex organs, primary and secondary. The primary sex organs are responsible for the production of gametes, whereas the gametes which are produced by the primary sex organs will be conducted and also nourished by the secondary sex organs. So for the conduction and nourishment of the gametes, the secondary sex organs are present. So we can put it as the primary sex organs will produce the gametes, and these gametes will be conducted and nourished by the secondary sex organs. So these are the two major sex organs in our body. So now when we are clear with what is puberty, the various secondary sexual characters which appear during the puberty, and the sex organs in human beings, let us discuss about the reproductive systems in human beings, starting with the male reproductive system. So let us study the various parts of the male reproductive system and its functions. We have seen in the video that the male gametes and the female gametes are produced by reproductive structures called as gonads. The gonads in males are testes. So testes are responsible for the production of sperm, and we have also seen that the sex organ which is responsible for the production of gamete are the primary sex organs. So testis is the primary sex organ in males. When we write, we have to write testis, but in this diagram when we label, we have to label it as TESTIS, because only one of the testis we can see, whereas in males there are two testes. But in this diagram, since we are drawing only one of the testes, we have to write it as TESTIS. This is the singular form, but there are two testes, so we have to write plural form, that is TESTES. The only difference is the last two letters, ES and IS. IS is singular, ES is plural. So testes are the primary sex organs in males, and they are two in number. The testes are responsible for the production of sperm. These sperms are tiny bodies which majorly consist of the genetic material and a long tail. This long tail helps the sperm to move easily so that it can move and also reach the female gamete, because the sperm is the motile gamete, so it has to move and reach the female gamete in order to fertilize it. So the sperm consists of majorly the genetic material and a long tail that helps them to move. And the pair of testes is located outside the abdominal cavity. So if you look at the diagram also, this testis is located in a bag-like or a sac-like structure which is present outside the abdominal cavity, and the sac-like or bag-like structure is called as scrotum. So these testes are present outside the abdominal cavity in a bag-like or sac-like structure called as scrotum. Now why is it present outside the abdominal cavity? It is because the sperm formation requires a temperature lower than the body temperature. So in order to maintain a temperature which is lower than the normal body temperature, this testis is present outside the abdominal cavity in the scrotum, because it can have a temperature which is lower than the normal body temperature. This testis is not only responsible for the sperm production but also responsible for the production of hormone testosterone. And testosterone has very important functions and is responsible for sperm formation as well as for the various secondary sexual characters which we can see in case of males. So the secondary sexual characters in males is because of this hormone testosterone, and this testosterone is also produced by the testis. So this is about testis and its function. So the sperm which is produced in this testis will be then delivered through this vas deferens. So this vas deferens will be carrying or delivering the sperm which is produced by the testis, and if you see, this vas deferens will be then uniting with the tube which is coming from this urinary bladder. So vas deferens brings the sperm from the testis and then connects with the tube which is coming from this urinary bladder. So the vas deferens and this tube from the urinary bladder will unite. And when the sperm is carried through this vas deferens, there are several glands present on its way. For example, the seminal vesicle and the prostate gland. So these glands which are present in the way of vas deferens will be adding on their secretions to this sperm. So what we have seen so far, this testis is producing the sperm is then carried by this vas deferens, and on the way when the sperm is moving through the vas deferens, the secretions from the glands on its path, that is for example the seminal vesicle and the prostate glands, will be adding on their secretions to the sperm. So now the sperm is along with some secretions. The sperm along with the secretions of the glands is called as semen. So now the sperm which was produced by the testis has been converted to semen by adding on various secretions to it. Now why are these secretions necessary or important? It is because the secretions make the transport easier as well as is responsible for enriching the sperm, because the secretions are rich in protein and it provides various nutrition to this sperm. So the sperm gets its secretions from these glands, which makes its transport easier as well as it enriches the sperm. And this sperm along with this secretion is called as semen. So this vas deferens is coming from here, getting all the secretions from the glands and uniting with the tube from the urinary bladder. These two will open into a common tube which is called as urethra. So urethra serves as a common passage for both sperm as well as urine. So in males there is only one pathway for the release of sperm and urine, that is urethra. So we can see some other parts as well. The ureter is bringing the urine to the urinary bladder. Then from the urinary bladder a tube comes out which connects with the vas deferens, and these two then open into the urethra. And urethra forms a common opening for both sperm which is coming through the vas deferens and the urine which is coming from the tube from the urinary bladder. And one more part that we will be studying is the penis. Penis is a muscular organ which is responsible for the transfer of semen. Semen is sperm along with the secretions into the female reproductive tract. So for the transfer of the semen into the female reproductive tract, this penis is responsible. It opens out through this tube which is called as urethra. So this is about the male reproductive system. Now let us discuss about the female reproductive system. So now let us discuss about the female reproductive system. Just like how we have seen that in males the gonads are present, which produces the sperm and other primary sex organs. Similarly, in the females also gonads are present, and the primary sex organs or the gonads in females are the ovaries. The ovaries are present on both left and right, just like how we had two testes in males, there are two ovaries in females. The ovaries are responsible for the formation of the female gamete called as the ova or the eggs. So the female gametes are produced by this primary sex organs in females called as ovaries. When a girl is born, the ovaries consist of thousands of immature eggs. On reaching the puberty, the age or period when a human being acquires sexual maturity, some of these eggs will start to mature. And one egg will be produced every month by one of the ovaries. So one of the ovaries will be producing one egg per month. So every month one egg will be produced by one of the ovaries. The ovaries are not only responsible for the production of female gametes but also responsible for the production of estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is a hormone which is responsible for the secondary sexual characters in females, whereas progesterone helps in maintenance of pregnancy. Just like how testosterone was responsible for the secondary sexual characters in males, similarly estrogen is responsible for the secondary sexual characters in females. The eggs that are produced in this ovary will be then carried by a tube which is called as the fallopian tube. It is also called as the oviduct. Why the name oviduct? Ovi refers to ova or ovum. Ova is plural and ovum is singular, and duct refers to a tube. So the tube which conducts or transports the egg or the ova is called as fallopian tube. So it is also called as oviduct, the duct which transports the ova. So this fallopian tube will be transferring or it will be conducting the ova which is produced by this ovary. The two fallopian tubes from each of the ovary will join or unite into a muscular structure which is called as uterus. The uterus is a muscular hollow organ that can bear a child. So this is the place where the embryo will be implanted. What happens is the ovary which will produce the ova will be fertilized by a sperm. So when this ova is fertilized by the sperm, it will form a structure called zygote. This zygote, when it moves from the fallopian tube towards the uterus, what will happen is this will undergo many divisions and form a structure called as embryo. This embryo will then get attached to the inner lines of the uterus. So uterus is the site of attachment of embryo. So therefore, the site of attachment of embryo is the inner lining of the uterus. In order to hold this embryo and to nourish it, the lining of the uterus will get thickened and gets richly supplied with blood vessels. After uterus, the next part is vagina. The vagina is a reproductive part which is situated at the end of the uterus in the female reproductive tract. Cervix is located just above the vagina and it is a junction between the vagina and the uterus. The sperms through the penis will be released into the vagina and the sperms will then move from the vagina, cervix, uterus and finally to the fallopian tube and will go and fertilize the egg which is present over there. When the sperm fertilizes this ovum, what happens is this develops into a zygote, and then zygote, while moving from this fallopian tube towards the uterus, will undergo various divisions to form a structure called as embryo. And this embryo will go and get attached to the inner linings of the uterus, which is richly supplied with blood vessels and is highly thickened. This embryo will then later develop into a fetus and then slowly will grow into a fully developed child. With this, we come to the end of male and female reproductive systems as well. Now let us quickly recap what we have seen in this video. We started with what is puberty. Puberty is the age or period when a child becomes sexually mature, or we can say the reproductive parts or the reproductive organs of the child start to function. And during puberty, the general growth and the development of the body starts to slow down, whereas the reproductive tissues begin to mature. After puberty, we saw the various secondary sexual characters which occur or appear during puberty. And some of the secondary sexual characters can be same in case of both boys and girls, whereas different in case of boys and girls. After discussing about the secondary sexual characters, we discussed about the sex organs. In sex organs, we saw they are primary and secondary sex organs majorly. The primary sex organs produces the gametes, whereas the secondary sex organs are responsible for the conduction and nourishment of the gametes. So after discussing about the sex organs, we discussed about the male and the female reproductive system. We started with the male reproductive system. The major parts of the male reproductive system which we have seen are the primary sex organs, the gonads in males, they are testes, which are responsible for the production of sperm, and also the hormone testosterone, which is responsible for the secondary sexual characters in males and also for the production of sperm. After testes, we discussed about the vas deferens, which carries the sperm from the testes. Then we also discussed about the glands, which come in the pathway of the sperm while it moves through the vas deferens, and the glands add on their secretions to the sperm, which is present in the vas deferens, and sperm along with the secretions from the glands is called as semen. This vas deferens then unites with a tube which is coming from the urinary bladder and finally open into the urethra. And urethra serves as a common passage for both sperm and urine. Then we discuss about penis, which is responsible for transferring the sperm into the female reproductive tract, and it opens out through the urethra. After discussing about the male reproductive system, we discussed about the female reproductive system. In female reproductive system, we saw that the gonads in females are called as ovaries, which are responsible for the production of ova or eggs, and also for the production of estrogen, which is responsible for the secondary sexual characters, and progesterone hormone, which is responsible for the maintenance of pregnancy. After discussing about ovaries, we saw that ovaries are then conducted by the fallopian tube, which is also called as oviduct. And in this fallopian tube only the process of fertilization occurs, where the sperm will come and fuse with the egg. After fertilization occurs, the zygote is formed, and the zygote then moves from the fallopian tube to the uterus, where it gets attached in the form of embryo to the inner linings of uterus. In the uterus, this embryo develops into a fetus and later into a fully grown child. Then we have seen the other parts also, like the vagina and the cervix. Cervix is a connection between the vagina and the uterus, and vagina is a part which receives the sperm from the male reproductive system through the penis. So from the penis into the vagina the sperms are released, then from the vagina the sperm moves towards the cervix, uterus, and finally reaches the fallopian tube, where the fertilization has to occur. And after the fertilization occurs, the resultant zygote undergoes many divisions to form the embryo, and this embryo gets attached to the inner linings of uterus. And to support this embryo and to nourish it, the linings of the uterus gets thickened and gets richly supplied with blood vessels. So this is all that we have discussed in this video. With this, we come to the end of this video. In the next video, we will discuss about the process of reproduction and also the reproductive health. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you like this video, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.